Welcome back to meeting number 33, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations, of course widely known as the Mighty OGGO. We welcome back our friends from the Treasury Board. Before you start with your opening statement, President Ali, colleagues, just a reminder, please keep headphones away from the mics. And a new request from our interpreters, if you're shuffling papers, make sure your papers are not hitting the microphones, because that's causing an issue as well. President Ali, you've got 5 minutes. The floor is yours. Please go ahead, sir.
Merci, Mr. President. I'm pleased to be here to discuss the 2025-26 Supplementary Estimate C. In total, these estimates present $5.4 billion in proposed voting spending. This is offset by a decrease of $1.4 billion in statutory spending for a total of $4 billion in planned expenditures. With the items requested in these estimates, the government continues to invest in the national priorities that will keep our country strong and prosperous. Mr. Chair, the government is taking action to secure Canada's sovereignty by rebuilding, rearming, and reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces. To this end, these estimates propose $2.2 billion to further strengthen our military. Funding for the Department of National Defense will be used for equipment such as multi-mission aircraft, armored vehicles, drones, and strategic tanker transport capability aircraft project. Proposed funding will also support operations, recruitment, and retention. These estimates also seek funding for Indigenous priorities. True reconciliation means more than symbolic gestures. It requires concrete actions and investment in education, healthcare, governance, and economic opportunity. These estimates seek $348.4 million for First Nation child and family services so that children can be cared for in their communities, and $155.6 million to support access to healthcare services which are not available locally. Mr. Chair, I will highlight one additional priority supported by these supplementary estimates. Our veterans serve to protect the very rights and freedoms we enjoy today. We owe them a debt of gratitude for their service and sacrifice. These estimates request $300.4 million for various programs and services to support veterans and their families. Mr. Chair, let me now turn to my department. The supplementary estimates propose establishment of Vote 50, a new Treasury Board central vote. This vote would support urgent and unforeseen defense requirements that cannot wait for the next supply period. Access to the vote would be granted by the Treasury Board. Mr. President, let me take a moment to highlight a fact that Canada has met NATO's defense spending target of 2%. This is the first time since the late 1980s that the country has met its targets. To provide transparency, and any allocation from this fund would be presented in the next supplementary estimates. TBS is also seeking parliamentary approvals to increase its Vote 30 pay list requirements by $140 million. This increase would provide funding to support mandatory payouts, such as excess vacation leave, parental and maternity allowances, and other adjustments that have not been provided by Vote 15 compensation adjustments. TBS is also seeking parliamentary approval to increase its Vote 15 compensation adjustments by $31.2 million. This increase would cover pay increases and lump sum payments from recently signed collective agreements and updated terms of employment for the Ship Repair West and air traffic control groups. Mr. Chair, these estimates demonstrate that the government continues to invest responsibly and transparently to deliver on the issues that matter most to Canadians. On transparency, I want to be very clear. This government is committed to giving Parliament and Canadians a clearer picture of how public funds are being spent. 2 weeks ago, our government tabled the Departmental's plan to provide Parliament with a more complete picture of spending. The Departmental plan set out how departments will deliver on these priorities. They provide detailed information on planned spending, expected results, and performance indicators, ensuring Parliament and Canadians can track how funds are being used and what outcomes they are delivering. My officials and I would now be pleased to take your questions on any of these items. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thanks. We'll start with Mr. Patzer, please, for 6.
Thank you, Minister, for coming here today. Really do appreciate it. I'm just wondering if you can tell us straight off the top if you know what the deficit is going to be going forward.
Mr. le Président, we are here to discuss supplementary estimate C, which has 5.4 billion of total expenditure projection, but we have actually we decreased that spending at 1.4 billion. So
you don't know what the projection for the deficit's going to be for the rest of the year?
I'm saying that we're here to discuss supplementary
which is an
C.
Which is an update.
That is today's committee to discuss supplementary estimate C.
Okay, it's an update. I was hoping you would know the answer.
Projected spending of 5.4 billion, and then we actually have spent like 4 billion, which is decrease of 1.4 billion.
Okay. Do you know what the increase over last year this time is that we're seeing as a result of these supplementaries?
Supplementary, we have in main estimate spending is up 15.9 billion as compared to last year.
Okay, I have 24 billion in the numbers from the PBO, and actually from a Government of Canada website as well. It's $24 billion, which is basically a 5% increase. At the same time, you guys are undergoing the comprehensive expenditure review, which is supposed to find $15 billion in savings. So how's that going?
Comprehensive expenditure review we launched to bring our operational costs, balance our operational costs in the next 3 years, and to find savings, to invest in the areas where it will matter most to Canadians, for example, defense, infrastructure, housing. So we're finding saving of 60 billion in 5 years, and it's going well, and we're bringing our public service in sustainable level.
It's going well. Interesting. Do you know what the national debt is right now, Minister?
Again, I'm here to discuss supplementary estimates C. So I think this is the meeting is dedicated to that, to discuss supplementary estimate C. And I think it's on the main estimate. We'll come back again, Mr. Chair. I think we should use our time to discuss what we've been here to discuss.
Well, you're the Treasury Board President. I would hope that you would know what the national debt is. You don't even know what the deficit for this year is, which is just appalling that you would come to this committee and not even know some of those very basic numbers that you should know as the head of the Treasury Board. But I will inform you, Minister, it is $1.29 trillion is the national debt. By the end of your hour here at committee, another $4.5 million will be added to the debt. By the end of today, it'll be about $110 million without you spending any money. Just the interest alone is going to be that particularly high. And when we are continue to add more and more spending through the supplementary estimates, those numbers only go higher and higher and higher. It doesn't get that any lower, which means that the next generation of Canadians and the current generation of Canadians are going to be the ones who are going to be bearing the brunt of this. So I'm just wondering, at what point in time are you going to return to a fiscal anchor that is actually going to help sustain the economy? Because it used to be that you were not going to go over a $40 billion deficit. This year, it's a $78 billion deficit was the projection. That's why I asked you if you knew what the latest update on the deficit was. If you don't know it, I'll ask you one more time. I've given you some time to find that number. What is the deficit going to be with the update here?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. What I can tell you in the main estimates, we have $502 billion in budgetary spending, and up to $15.9 billion is up 15.9 billion compared to last year, and this includes 230.4 billion in voted spending and 272.4 billion in statutory spending, and nearly 60% of this spending is directed towards transfers to the provinces and other priorities. They also contain 14.7 billion in new spending announced in Budget 2025, including funding for defense, but also infrastructure and economic support.
You have, did you apply a rural lens to any of that spending, Minister?
These main estimates, if you're going to go in a technicality of regional or those estimates, they comes from departments, and every department is responsible for their submissions.
Interesting. Do you have a breakdown of the layoffs of public servants by region, Minister? Do you have that information?
We're dealing with the workforce adjustment and early retirement. There's many tools we have to deal with this workforce reduction, and we're returning to public service to a more sustainable level of 330,000, and about 9,800 jobs were reduced in 2024, 2025.
Thank you.
And with the additional reduction this year,
we're past our time, I'm afraid. But you might be able to finish that with Mr. Gasparo's intervention. Go ahead, please, Mr. Gasparo.
Thank you, Chair, and Minister, thank you for being here. It's been widely reported this morning that for the first time since 1990, Canada hit our 2% NATO defense spending target, fulfilling our new government's promise to rearm our Canadian Armed Forces. On that note, can you please talk to me about Vote 50 and the supplementary estimates and what it will do more broadly for the Canadian Armed Forces?
Merci beaucoup, Chair. Thank you for a very important question. Our new government was elected on the commitment to build Canada strong, to secure our borders and secure our communities. Given how quickly the global environment is changing, Treasury Board has introduced Vote 50. That I'll come back to Vote 50. But the most important part today, we, Prime Minister, I think, have announced today that we have met 2% spending on to meet our NATO commitment. So in 2025, 2026, the estimate includes over 47.8 billion in investments for the National Department of National Defense. And the 2026-2027 main estimate also proposed over 48 billion for the defense to support modern equipment, training, and cooperation with international partners. The estimates introduce a new central vote of 50 to provide flexibility for unforeseen national defense or security needs. Funding would require TB approval, and all allocation would be reported in the next estimates. That is, there is a strong control in place for transparency, and any access to these funds will require Treasury Board approval. Again, I can just mention, and follows the same process as other funding decisions. And the transparency is a key, and use of these funds will be reported through supplementary estimates or year-end reporting, and a parliamentarian can clearly see if and when the funding is used. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to another topic here, and thank you for that answer. Over the past couple of meetings, we've had Treasury Board officials here, and they've discussed how our new government's red tape review is unfolding, and you briefly touched on it in your opening remarks. I think it's important in finding a balance between necessary regulations that protect the health and safety of Canadians and regulations that make it harder for Canadian business to operate and, more specifically, generate revenue. According to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the combined cost of regulation to businesses from all three levels of government was estimated at $51.5 billion in 2024, with approximately $17.9 billion attributed to red tape. Additionally, the CFIB found, and it's fairly obvious, that regulations hurt small businesses with 5 employees or less, much more than it hurts large corporations. So can you just talk to me about the red tape review that our new government has introduced and how it will help with productivity and support small businesses across Canada?
Merci beaucoup. Thank you for that question. And as part of the Prime Minister's mandate letter, I launched a red tape review last summer, asking ministers with regulatory responsibilities to identify ways to cut unnecessary red tape, streamline services, reduce duplication, and lower costs for Canadians and businesses. Since then, the departments have identified about approximately 500 initiatives, many of which are already underway, and we will be publishing a progress report this spring to show what has been delivered so far. Building on that work, we launched a horizontal review in December to look across government and identify further opportunities to streamline regulations and improve efficiency. This includes working with regulators, industry, and provinces and territories to find practical solutions. Our focus is clear: reduce unnecessary red tape, keep Canada competitive, lower costs for Canadians, and ensure regulatory system keeps pace with today's economy, and so we can build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'll wait for the subsequent round. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Madame Gaudreau.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the interpretation working well, President of the Treasury Board? Yes? Great. So, given that you are the controller, you oversee public spending, I have a few questions because we don't have the answers yet. And I'd like to know, how much money have you granted for CURM and Phoenix to date?
This is a technical question. I'm going to ask my deputy to respond to this question, please.
Merci. On peut fournir une
Thank you. We can provide a detailed answer to the committee, Mr. Chair, but just to say there are 2 systems. There's the Phoenix Pay system, which takes money every year for Public Services and Procurement Canada to manage that program. But we are also developing a new software to replace Phoenix in the coming years. And there's also a budget for that project. I don't have much time. I'd like to have the details. Both? Yes, both, absolutely. Yes, we can do that. And I have another question. Why does the Department of Veterans Affairs, why has it not been protected as the RCMP and National Defense have been?
Sorry, can I ask my colleague to repeat the question, please?
Oh, de répéter.
To repeat. I'll start over. Okay. The RCMP and National Defense have been protected in the budget, but not veterans. They haven't been protected. Why?
I think veterans, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we owe them for their sacrifice and their contribution. The freedom we enjoy today, they have made sacrifices for this, and they are protected, and we are doing our level best to support them, and we'll continue to do that.
Hier, justement, on avait la ministre.
Yesterday, the Minister McKnight, was with us, and she said that they're doing the best they can with what they have. But you need to go through Cabinet for cases, the hundreds or thousands of cases. That's a clear signal. There shouldn't be cuts. On the contrary, if we cherish and we're really aware of the contribution of our veterans, well, clearly, we wouldn't be making cuts in the budget.
Thank you for the question. In those comprehensive expenditure review, every department was asked for 15% of find savings at 15%, where the programs are not productive or not meeting their objectives, or underperforming. But some organizations were reduced to 2%, and some were supported to their, I think, an indigenous organization related supporting indigenous Canadians, indigenous people, or defense, or RCMP and CBSA, including veterans. So I think it's where there's a duplications, where there's underperformance of any department, where they're not meeting objectives. So that's where we're reassigning and then reinvesting into the priorities that matter most. And this is one of the priority we have.
Est-ce que
the Treasury Board, does it have to approve the use of external contractors to deal with a lack of expertise in the public service? Is that under your purview?
Merci for the question. That's mostly departments, they have their authorities to move forward on the contracts, or there's many services. There's a management consultants, or there is a services, for example, in certain areas that the health.
Do they consult you? Do you give your stamp of approval?
To Treasury Board, because ministers have authorities to get into those contracts. So if their authority falls under ministers' authorities, they can move forward on their own.
My last question, do departments have to approve their plans for cutting staff?
Thank you. For that department, they put forward their plans, and their deputy heads are responsible for that reduction. But since it's a technical, I'm going to ask my deputy to respond to that question.
Merci. Très brièvement. Chaque ministère.
Thank you. Very briefly, each department has given their approval for the ideas to reduce spending by 15%. The government has already made a number of decisions, but now it's the deputy ministers and other managers. It's their responsibility to put in place the decisions of the government, but each department has given their approval.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Jansen, please.
I'm hoping that I can break this down in a way that makes sense, because I know a lot of Canadians are kind of confused about what just happened. So the Liberals asked us to approve spending $1 billion, vote 50C, with absolutely no breakdown of where the money's going. So now we're here after the vote, trying to understand what just got approved. So as I see it, Parliament's job is to approve spending before it happens, based on clear information. Would we agree on that, Minister?
Merci for that question. It's a very important question for Canadians to understand what is Vote 50. We already have Vote 5, which is 5% contingency fund. We already have that in place, that in case of any urgency, you're able to use that fund. And similarly, Vote 50 is specifically for our Canadian Armed Forces, that should they need any urgent funding, so we don't get into the long process of getting into estimates. Just
my time
because
is short.
The Canadians
My time
are
is
watching,
short.
and this is a very important question.
My time is short. Can I cede the floor? I take the floor back? The Parliamentary Budget Officer told us that there was no breakdown available, and not because it's confidential, but because the decisions hadn't been made yet, and that's why we had to vote. Correct?
Vote 50, it's really important to understand this is a fund, is there $1 billion for urgency, any urgent or emergency fund required by Canadian Armed Forces. It is there. If any spending would be done, that would be approved by Treasury Board,
Okay, so
and it would be presented in next parliamentary estimates.
So I have a follow-up question. Can I take the floor back? I have a follow-up question. So this funding only becomes available after royal assent, after the vote, which happened just a few days ago. So now you have just a few days left in the fiscal year. And as I understand it, departments will have a very short window to spend it. So help me understand this. It looks like this money is going to be rushed out the door in the final days, and that means the Liberals forced us to approve $1 billion without a plan, without a list of projects, and in actual fact, we don't even know if the details will ever come at all. $1 billion, Mr. Ali. And you've accused me in the past of trying to get social media clips, but I can assure you, Canadians are very concerned about the way their money is being spent. A $1 billion blank check is a very big deal, and this is just me trying to follow the money. You have 5 days left in the fiscal year to spend $1 billion, yet we have no idea what you're going to spend it on. Does that sound like a good idea to you, sir?
Again, thank you for the question. You're getting into that illusion again that money somehow is being spent. I'm explaining that this is Vote 50 is a $1 billion is a fund there for emergency needs. It should our Canadian Armed Forces need anything, so it is there. If the money would be spent,
so in the next 5 days,
it would be coming into Parliament, and we had an opportunity to ask question in Parliament. We just passed this bill 2 days ago in the Parliament.
So this money will be spent in the next 5 days?
Money is there, and we have robust and very transparent system. It would be the detail would be coming to the Parliament in next estimates. So
okay, I'd like to ask a following question. So, how much of the 2% of NATO commitment is simply from reclassifying our civilian Coast Guard as military?
I think it's we're here to discuss Bill C. Estimate C, and this is something like
respect,
you have
mentioned it in your
to defense.
first thing.
Chair,
you can respond
Chair,
to
point
the
of order.
question.
Point of order. I thought.
I'm pausing the time. I have a point of order.
Sorry, maybe I'm new to this place and I don't know how this works yet. But usually we ask the questions and the minister or whoever's here, the witness, answers. Don't we have to give them time to answer? Sorry, I'm just trying to figure how this works. So maybe you can explain it.
It is the member's time. So if the member feels it's not getting the right answer, they're welcome to interrupt. But it is the member's time.
Chair, we have to give the minister a chance to be able to respond.
The time belongs to the member. If the member does not wish to allow time for response, that's the member's time. Just like if someone goes on a 5-minute speech and does not allow a time for response, it's their use of the time. There are times, well, perhaps right now I'll intervene, where the President is stating we're not here for that discussion, but he brought it up repeatedly, and you brought it up repeatedly about the 2%. So I think it's a fair question to ask. I think Mrs. Jansen's just pressing him on that point. We will ask everyone to stop talking over each other, though, which is, I think, perhaps to your point as well. Can you continue, Ms. Jansen and Ms. President Ali? You have 30 seconds left.
So I just want to reiterate the question so that it's clear, because we did have this in your speech, and Mr. Gasparo spoke about it as well with great pride. So the question is, how much of the 2% of NATO commitment is simply from reclassifying the civilian Coast Guard as military?
Again, this is, I think it would be very small portion of that, and then I can ask my deputy to respond to this question for your benefit.
Certainly, I can be very quick, Mr. Chair. Very, very small amount indeed, because the Coast Guard's relevant activities for defense were already counted when they were part of Fisheries and Oceans. So it is a very, very small amount.
We're out of time. Would you be able to just get back to the committee with an exact number? Wonderful. We will now go to Ms. Khalid for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, thank you for being here, and to our officials as well. I'll just start by asking, the comprehensive expenditure review, is it a fundamentally job-cutting exercise?
Very important question, and thank you for your question. This is actually not a job-cutting exercise. This is like finding this is like balancing our operational budget in next 3 years and finding priorities, finding saving to invest in the priorities that matter most to Canadians. And in Budget 2025, we committed approximately $60 billion in savings over 5 years by modernizing operations, streamlining program delivery, and focusing resources where they have greatest impact. This does include bringing the public service to a more sustainable size over time, but it is about managing growth responsibly, not across the board cuts. It is a core, and this is about improving how we operate, reducing duplication, simplifying processes, and delivering services more effectively. We are also working to rely on external consultants and build more expertise within public service, so work is done more effectively and efficiently and at lower cost. Ultimately, this is about respecting taxpayers' dollars, making sure every dollar is used wisely to deliver results for Canadians and support strong economy. And as you know, that in our...
Thank you so much for that, Minister. I appreciate it. You're talking about taxpayer dollars and the need to use them wisely. Now, we've heard from constituents, and I'm sure you have heard from your own constituents as well, about service delivery and the lack thereof in many aspects, whether it's IRCC or CRA or Passport Canada, Service Canada, etc. So my question to you is, we're looking at cutting up to 15% of department's budget, and how does that impact service delivery for Canadians?
Merci beaucoup. Very important question again, and thank you for that. The comprehensive expenditure review is not about across-the-board cuts. It tasks departments to identify savings by looking closely at programs and activities that are underperforming, duplicative, and not core to their mandate. The goal is to find inefficiencies and improve how government operates so Canadians get better value for their tax dollars. And a key principle is that the saving should not come at the expense of frontline services Canadians rely on. Protecting these services remains a priority throughout this process, and that is why some departments have lower savings targets, such as 2%, including national defense, women and gender equality, Indigenous services, and the research councils, So we recognize the critical role these organizations play in delivering essential services, advancing social priorities, and supporting national security, and the approach reflects that. Our focus has been that we cannot compromise on service delivery to Canadians. This is finding efficiencies and finding duplication and finding those savings to reassign with the priority matter most to Canadians.
Thank you for that, Minister, and I appreciate the services that we are trying to provide to Canadians. I will register, though, that with respect to service delivery from IRCC, CRA, and Service Canada, we're finding significant challenges on the ground, and I hope that you'll take that into account as we go through these cuts. So moving on to the early retirement incentive, can you walk us through what what is being proposed as part of that workforce adjustment plan with this process?
Merci beaucoup for that question. And
I'm sorry, there's been no time left for a response. We are running pretty good on time, though, so we might be able to add a 4 minutes after the next, so maybe we can come back to that. Madame Gaudreau, for 2.5, please.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Chair, I'll be very honest. I'm outraged. We're talking about service to people for over 3 years. There are 8 members from the Bloc Québécois using our own budget. We've hired a resource to deal with immigration issues. Otherwise, people would be abandoned. When you say services, well, services are not going well already. Explain to me how you will manage, because it makes no sense.
Again, thank you for that question. Our focus has been, Mr. Chair, that we bring our government operational costs, balance it in next 3 years, and find savings so we can invest in the priority matter most to Canadians. And we were elected on the mandate that we'll spend less and invest more to build the strongest economy in the G7 and to build Canada strong. And that's exactly what we're focused on. We're focusing on that areas where the programs were underperforming, where they were not meeting their objectives, and then we're finding those savings to reassign where it matters most to Canadians. At the same time, we are focused that this exercise would not impact on delivery of services to Canadians, and that has been our focus. And if any area, my friend, my colleague, if you have any areas, then I'll be happy to address that. And my team is there to assist if you can point out any area.
I have a last question. I just have a few seconds left. This really moves me. In your comments, you've talked about building Canada strong. Now, during an election campaign, I'm thinking of Terrebonne. There's advertising, podcast, TV, Build Canada Strong. When I'm in Terrebonne, on the poster it says Build Canada Strong. What are the rules for public information versus partisan advertising? That concerns me. Ethics are important to me.
I'll ask Bill, my deputy, to respond to this question, please.
Donc, il y a une politique.
So there's a policy from Treasury Board on this topic to ensure that it is not something that can be used for partisan purposes. So it needs to be withdrawn, and there should be apologies. There are still a few days before the end of the campaign. It's partisan. It's the same slogan. Response. The policy requires that an independent agency conduct a review of the program to ensure that the policy purpose is respected. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. We're going to go to Mrs. Kusi and then Ms. Dirksen. But before we do, Mr. Matthews, can I follow up on that point? Will you get back to us on what the process is for that independent review? Because I've brought this up before here and in the House where the budget actually uses Liberal campaign slogan. I've also looked inside the rules where it does state specifically that the government cannot use messaging from campaign slogans. Would you be able to follow up with the committee on that?
I can absolutely, Mr. Chair, give you the policy itself as well as the process that underpins it.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Mrs. Kusi for 5. Welcome back, by the way.
It is always a pleasure to be here at the Mighty OGGO, Chair. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much, President, for returning. I was recently reviewing the departmental reports, which are closely tied to the CER exercise, and I have 2 major concerns. The first is that the departments under your care don't seem to have a specific roadmap as to how they will realign, as you say, but realistically eliminate these positions. And having served in government myself for close to 15 years, I know that every position comes with a line item. Your department should be providing you with this. Are you concerned that we won't actually be able to see the plan under your care and the implementation of that until fiscal year 2026, 2027, when we see where the cuts, which are actual positions, were made?
Merci beaucoup, Chair. Thank you, my colleague, for this important question. I can assure you we have a plan, and the department has a plan, and they are engaged with bargaining agents as well to execute this plan. And I mean, if you need a detailed clarity, just give me 30 seconds. I'll be happy to
I've given you 30 seconds already,
there.
President, and all I've heard is that you have a plan. I would really suggest you review that plan, and probably for the sound-mindedness of Canadians, if you could release that plan. My greater concern is that while you are going through this exercise and you claim there is a decrease in positions, we're actually seeing an increase in spending, with 64 departments having greater expenditures in 2025, 2026. So it's not clear to me, and I don't think it's clear to Canadians. Wouldn't the entire idea behind this exercise, this significant exercise, possibly the trademark of your time as president, be able to show savings for Canadians? Because right now, there are 64 departments more that have greater expenditures in 2025, 2026. Don't you think that is already a failure of the plan, even before it's attempted to be implemented?
It's, in fact, other way around. We're saving $60 billion over 5 years. So, and then we're balancing our government operational budget in next 3 years. So I think it's other way around. Yes, we're finding savings on the areas where the programs were not performing, not meeting their objectives, or maybe duplications, and reassigning to different areas. So that's where you might have sort of confusion, but I'll be happy to assist you or host you to explain, offline, than where you have any confusions.
I don't think there's any confusion. I think spending $80 billion more than you have this year alone is a very clear indicator of you and your government's inability to manage the books and to balance it. And unfortunately, we are not seeing any improvement within that, or with this exercise. I'm going to move on to the Access to Information Act. There are many Canadians who are currently concerned about the proposed changes to the Access to Information Act that your department is suggesting, which include eliminating emails and texts as responses to requests for access to information, in addition to allowing departments to put halts or pauses when they make access to information requests. I believe that Canadians deserve transparency from their government and that these changes would significantly reduce transparency for Canadians when trying to obtain information about the decisions your government has taken and your responsibility with that. Would you agree with me that government should be more transparent and you want to, as the president of the Treasury Board, provide transparency for Canadians?
Thank you for the question. I think as we've been very transparent, this government, new government, has been very transparent.
Not doing these changes,
when
President.
it comes to processing of ATIP requests, regardless of any technology used to support of this work, all files are reviewed by ATIP professional to ensure legal requirements for disclosure are being properly met. And then for your further clarification or satisfaction, I'm going to ask my deputy to
We are
respond
past
to.
our time, I'm afraid, as much as like hearing from Mr. Matthews. We'll go to Ms. Dirksen. Welcome back to OGGO. Time's yours for 5 minutes. And then we'll do a 4-minute round, and finish with a 2-minute round from the block. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to see you. I know you've joined us at Public Accounts on numerous occasions. Public Accounts is the committee where I normally attend. And at Public Accounts, we're a nonpartisan committee, and really the grand theme of the committee is government accountability in spending, taxpayer dollars going as far as they can and getting their best value, and transparency. And transparency is something that's been brought up numerous times by my colleagues around this table today and from yourself, Minister Ali. So I want to give you a chance, because you did mention in your opening remarks about transparency and in your response to Mr. Gasparo, I'm interested in hearing more from you about what types of transparency measures and mechanisms you are contemplating implementing in Supplementary C as a whole.
Thank you for the question. We, as a new government, we've been very transparent. All main estimates and supplementary estimates. In Budget 2025, there's an annex of 40 pages. It's the details are there. We also have a website that we update information regarding CER, workforce adjustment on regular basis. And if you go on canada.ca, you find all the information there. So there's, we believe in transparency and fairness, and I'm committed to be transparent to Canadians, that Canadians have a right to know where their tax dollar is being spent. And actually, since I have taken over, I asked my officials to educate Canadians that how we spend their tax dollar. We actually had done a video on that. I think it's a bill that average Canadian need to understand that how their tax dollar is being spent and how they are receiving services from their governments. So to me, it's very important, and for our new government, it's really important to be transparent and to be accountable to Canadians.
Thank you, Minister, and I certainly agree with you, and I would like to give you the opportunity and your officials the opportunity, if they could follow up maybe at a later date, to give us some more specifics about the mechanisms and procedures that you intend to implement. I think that would be of great reassurance to this committee and to Canadians in general. Is it a fair comment to say that Vote 50 spending will be made public?
Absolutely. This is the vote is funds are there for any urgent needs for our Canadian Armed Forces, should they need. But if they spend any money, it would be approved by Treasury Board and that would be, a report will be given to Parliament, so, and it would be made public. So there's nothing to hide. It's the most transparent process, and it would be available to Canadians.
Thank you. That's very good to hear. From what I understand, TBS is requesting $1 billion for the new Central Vote 50 Defense Security Initiative. So these are meant to supplement other appropriations to accelerate expenditures relating to defense and national security, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you illuminate for me how you determined the $1 billion figure?
I'm going to ask my deputy to respond to this breakdown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the $1 billion, as the President of the Treasury Board already said, it's a contingency vote. And I just want members to appreciate the context here. There's been an acceleration of defense spending and an investment in national defense, and urgency is being stressed. At the same time, we do have a system in the Canadian government where departments are not allowed to overspend their vote. It's actually illegal to overspend what Parliament's authorized. So in a world where we're pushing to accelerate, infrastructure, equipment, recruiting, et cetera, it's kind of hard to land that kind of spending on a dime. So if in the last, in the time between when supplementary estimates C were finalized and fiscal year end, it turns out there's a project that is running ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. We wanted to give access to departments to actually get that money to pay for the goods and services they receive. So it's a contingency. When it gets used, and I would say it will not all get used this fiscal year. It was just kind of an up to amount that was selected. We will publish in the next supplementary estimates how it was actually used.
Thank you. And I think you highlight a very important balance that needs to be struck here between urgency and efficiency given the context that we're finding ourselves. And of course, balancing that against the transparency and accountability that all of us need to meet as guardians of taxpayer dollars. So thank you for highlighting that. Is that my time? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. We'll go to Mr. Patzer for 4 and then Mr. Gasparo for 4. And finish up with Madame Goudreau for 2.
Okay, thank you very much. Minister, talking about some of the Research Council issues here, I'm just going to ask us a question first, and then we'll get into the research side of things. Do you consider a 34-to-1 return on investment a good return?
I'm sorry, can you elaborate a bit more, please?
For $1 spent, you get $34 back. Is that a good return on investment?
I don't know which word you get that return.
Well, just do you think that's a good return on investment? Would that
that looks unrealistic.
Okay, so the Department of Agriculture has research stations, and the value of those research stations for every dollar that is spent it is a 34-to-1 return on investment on those research dollars, because agriculture is 1 in 9 jobs in Canada, is one of our largest, if not the largest, exports and GDP developers in our economy. And those research stations, because of the work that they do on scaling up crops, they provide, and it's been verified by the University of Saskatchewan and other universities to be about that figure of 34-to-1. Yet you're cutting and close. So Agriculture Canada they're hitting that 15% reduction. We are shutting down the Indian Head Research Station, the Scott Research Station, the Lacombe Research Station. There's cuts to other research stations across the country. When you are, as the President of the Treasury Board, trying to obviously get spending under control, yet about the only department that can brag about having a real return on investment for taxpayers and actually get value out of the work that they're doing, that's the one that's getting the most devastating cuts. Does that make sense to you?
Chair, thank you for the question. I think it's I see one side that our colleague from Conservative, they say you're spending too much. Other side, when you're trying to find saving, you find different excuses. But this, every department was asked. It's not Treasury Board is deciding and what will happen in agriculture. It is the department was asked to submit or find saving where the programs are underperforming. So
did you approve that?
it is the minister responsible for that department who would have submitted the plan. I think it's if you have any concern, we're happy to assist you.
Well, I have a
on
lot
that
of
one,
concerns, but Minister, sorry,
I
I'm
would
going to
not
defer
comment
the
on
last minute to my colleague, Ms. Jansen here. I want her to have the last minute, so I'm going to give, no. She gets the last minute.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt her. Maybe, Minister, you can respond in writing to it, but it's, again, it's the member's time, and now Ms. Jansen is taking over. No. I could also say it's not fair that you filibuster the timeout. So
Sorry,
it's Madame
Chair.
Jansen.
Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
We ask our witnesses questions. We have to allow them to answer.
There was a question asked, and I did not see a response from Mr. Ali, but he's turned the time. It is the member's time. Oh,
no, he's not.
Minister Ali, that is very offensive. I think Minister, if you sat in any one of the Liberal-chaired committee meetings, you would not dare come in here and say, I am being partisan. That's offensive. Shame on you, Minister.
Shame on you,
I have been very fair. The time has been turned over to Mrs. Jansen. I've asked, I'm sorry? What was that, Minister?
You've been unfair, Chair. So
okay. Again, I would challenge you to spend a minute in any Liberal-chaired meeting, and then you come back here and tell me that. It's Mrs. Jansen for 1 minute. Please go ahead.
So I just want to clarify, like, there are contingency funds already built into the budget. This is over and above this 50C. So it's not for an unexpected emergency. It's for something you planned, but it wasn't ready. So, I mean, basically, we have a contingency fund in the budget. This $1 billion isn't replacing those. It's extra and being used to deal with spending that should have been planned properly in the first place. And I'm concerned that the answers you gave made it seem like this wasn't extra. I wonder if you can tell me, like, is this actually a contingency fund or is it a slush fund?
Again, my colleague is getting in conspiracy theories. There is a contingency fund in Vote 5, which is 5%. This is $1 billion in Vote 50 is a fund for Canadian Armed Forces. So if they need any money, it could be used, and it cannot be used without a Treasury Board's approval. And should they use any money, it will be made public. It will come in next estimates in the Parliament, so you will have an opportunity to ask questions, and this is the most transparent process. And this is not something new is happening. It's already that we have contingency fund previously, and then the Vote 50 is just for Canadian Armed Forces, just for Canadians to understand that what is and. You know, my colleagues getting into conspiracy theories. There's nothing to hide in here.
You will note I gave you extra time to answer. We'll finish up with Madame Gaudreau for 2 minutes. Then we're going to suspend. Oh, I apologize. Mr. Gasparo, then Madame Gaudreau. Then we're going to suspend for about 30 seconds to excuse the minister. Sorry, Vince.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. Minister, some individuals may be concerned that the government may be moving too quickly to reduce regulations. However, analysis by KPMG, Statistics Canada, indicates that federal regulatory requirements increased by approximately 40% between 2006 and 2021. Growth that occurred, I might add, under both Conservative and Liberal governments. So, question one, do you believe the red tape review will help bring Canada's regulatory burden back in line with historical norms? And then I'll move into a secondary question from there.
Thank you for your question. It's a really important question. This is something I came across. Regulatory burden is the biggest hurdle in growing businesses. I'm hearing from stakeholders, business leaders we actually had with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, with their collaboration, TBS had a town hall where we were listening directly from business leaders from across the country. This is something I have taken it very seriously, that we cannot grow our economy, strongest economy in the G7, unless we reduce these, we cut the red tape. So that has been my number one focus, and we've been working with provinces and other territories and business leaders that, you know, we need to streamline, we need to eliminate those duplicative regulations. And within our departments, there's businesses have to go for approval for the same thing over and over, where they waste time and money. If we eliminate or streamline or update those outdated regulations, they can contribute into our economy, create more jobs, and that's how we can build the strongest economy in the G7.
Great. Thank you, Minister. The follow-up question to that is, how is the government ensuring that essential protections, particularly those for health, safety, and environment, are maintained as regulations are modernized or removed?
Thank you for the question. We actually have been working, our team in TBS, taking this initiative as a dedicated team, and we're making sure that if we update or streamline or remove duplications, those regulations are benefit to Canadians and businesses, and those are not adding more burdens on businesses. So our focus is that it should not impact in any service delivery or do not create any hurdles. And Antoine, I'm going to ask him to shed his light on if he can add a few things, or maybe Bill can add.
In about 20
further clarity, please.
In about 20 seconds.
Okay.
Certainly. So any potential risk to health and safety is part of the assessment, and I would say you do not pass go if that test is not met. The other key parts, and last point here, is the cost-benefit analysis. So what is the cost to industry to implement versus the benefit to the broader Canadian economy or Canadians, and that test is also key as well. And both are a musts in terms of getting through the door.
Thank you very much. And President and Mr. Matthews, on the red tape, I highly recommend you look at the state of Idaho, what they've done. That's spectacular for their red tape reduction. Madame Gaudreau, please, for 2 minutes.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai simplement...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have information and a question. I'm very sensitive to tourism, and when we talk about return on investment, we met Destination Canada yesterday, and they said that it was $1 public dollar generates $24 in benefits. That's one job out of 10. It's the second biggest service industry in Canada. When we talk about numbers, $31 billion a year. You're aware, yesterday we highlighted that after 4 times in 10 years, if there's a sector that has suffered and hasn't been able to fulfill its potential, it's the tourism industry. So how is it that the government, with promises to have a total overhaul of EI, where we have concrete numbers on the impact on the return on investment, how is it that it's not being done?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for the question.
My deputy is in certified accountant, and I would ask him to respond to this question for your clarity and Canadians who are listening. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. President, I'll probably disappoint you with this answer, but we will, I'm not familiar with the actual study that shows the economic benefits per dollar invested, but my colleague Antoine and I would be happy to get a look at it. And you know, when you are doing cost-benefit analysis, it's really important to understand the methodology just to see how far it goes, but we will educate ourselves on this study. Thank you.
Thank you, Madame Gaudreau. We're going to suspend very quickly to say our goodbyes to President of the Treasury Board, and we'll get started right away.